Judith Maria and welcome to SG Global News. From the promising news from the Vatican regarding the pontiff's health to the Ursuline sisters on the path of forgiveness after receiving a letter from the convicted murderer of Saint Joanne Mary Masha, we have many stories to cover. We have promising news from the Vatican. Pope Francis' health is showing slight improvement. Meanwhile, prayers continue to pour in from the global church for the Holy Father's recovery.
The Vatican announced on Thursday that Pope Francis' health is showing slight improvement. He has no fever and his hemodynamic parameters remain stable, according to the Holy See Press Office report. After a restful night, the Pope got up and had breakfast while seated in an armchair. After receiving the Holy Eucharist, the Holy Father reportedly resumed his work. Pope Francis was admitted to Agostino Gemelli Polyclinic Hospital last Friday after experiencing breathing difficulties for several days. The Vatican previously announced that the Pope had a polymicrobial infection and the onset of bilateral pneumonia. However, his health has been steadily improving, aided by the prayers of millions. Meanwhile, a steady stream of faithful continues to visit Agostino Gemelli Polyclinic Hospital, praying for the Holy Father's recovery at the statue of Pope St. John Paul II outside the hospital.
Just days after US Vice President J.D. Vance warned Europe to defend free speech and religious liberty, Scottish police have arrested a 74-year-old woman for the crime of quietly praying outside a Glasgow hospital that performs abortions. The unarmed grandmother was handcuffed and led away by the police, a scene that can only be described as a chilling display of authoritarian outrage.
Rose Doherty, a 74-year-old grandmother and pensioner, was arrested in Scotland on Thursday for silently praying outside Queen Elizabeth University Hospital in Glasgow, which performs abortions. She held up a sign that said, quote, "Coercion is a crime, here to talk only if you want," end quote. Scottish police arrested Doherty under the Abortion Services Safe Access Zones Scotland Act 2024, which prohibits protests against abortion within 200 meters of hospitals or clinics performing abortions. Authorities stated that she would be reported to the prosecutors. Doherty's arrest is the first of its kind under the Abortion Services Safe Access Zones Act of 2024. Under the law, individuals can be held liable if they attempt to influence another person's decision to access, provide or facilitate abortion services, obstruct access to such premises, or cause harassment, alarm or distress. The arrest of the elderly grandmother, who was only praying before the clinic, is a blatant overreach of the law and is emblematic of the erosion of free speech and religious liberty in the country. Many prominent individuals and organizations have voiced their support for Rose Doherty, including Live Action founder and president Lila Rose and the group Knights Templar International.
In an initiative to support imprisoned mothers in bonding with the newborn babies, the Missouri Catholic Conference is supporting the prison nursery program. The group shared that it supported the legislation establishing the program in 2022.
Local Catholic leaders are offering a supportive, family-oriented place for imprisoned mothers to bond with their newborn babies through the prison nursery program in Missouri. The facility came into existence after the Missouri legislature passed a bill in 2022 creating the Correctional Center Nursery Program, which requires the Department of Corrections to establish a Correctional Center Nursery in at least one of the state's women's prisons by July 2025. The program allows inmates to have 18 months or fewer left on their sentence and who were not incarcerated for dangerous felonies, sex crimes or crimes against children. Mothers in the program go to a local hospital to have their babies, after which they return to the facility, which offers a variety of services geared toward helping mothers and their babies. Father Louis Don, a priest with the Diocese of Jefferson City who have done prison ministry for decades, shared that he has witnessed the emotional toll it takes on mothers who are separated from their newborn babies. The nursery initiative is backed by the Missouri Catholic Conference. The group shared that it supported the legislation establishing the program in 2022.
The U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops issued a joint statement criticizing President Donald Trump's latest executive order expanding IVF access. While acknowledging the deep heartbreak of infertility, the bishops reaffirmed that IVF is not the solution. Instead, they proposed an alternative and expressed their commitment to working toward its expansion.
The Public Affairs Office of the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops published a joint statement pushing back on Trump's executive order expanding access to in vitro fertilization for Americans. The order, issued on Tuesday, directs policy recommendations aimed at providing IVF access and significantly reducing out-of-pocket costs and health plan expenses for such treatments. Bishop Daniel Thomas of Toledo, chairman of the U.S. Bishops' Pro-Life Committee, and Bishop Robert Barron of Winona Rochester, chairman of the Committee for Laity, Marriage, Family Life and Youth, authored the joint statement on behalf of the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops. While the bishops recognized the suffering of couples experiencing infertility and the innate goodness of their desire to have children, they asserted that in vitro fertilization was not the answer. The bishops argued that the IVF industry treats human beings as commodities, citing the freezing or destruction of embryos not selected for implantation as evidence. They linked this practice to broader concerns about abortion. Consequently, they stated that Trump's executive order promoting IVF was fatally flawed and regrettably at odds with the promising pro-life actions taken by the administration last month. At the same time, the bishops affirmed that people born as a result of IVF have infinite dignity and worth, just as those who were never given the chance to be born. They also expressed a willingness to work with the administration to expand support for restorative reproductive medicine, an approach they say can ethically address underlying causes of infertility which are often overlooked. The bishops concluded their statement by vowing to strongly oppose any policy that expands destruction of human life or force others to subsidize the cost.
In his first move as a Secretary of Health Department, Robert Kennedy Jr. issued a one-page guideline that defines man and woman. Kennedy, in the press release, said the guidelines were issued to prevent the distortion of legal definition of these genders and also aimed at protecting women's rights.
As one of Robert Kennedy Jr.'s first moves since assuming the secretaryship of the Department of Health and Human Services, the agency released new guidance that redefines sex as a rigid scientific classification and recognizes male and female as the only two department-sanctioned genders. In a press conference on Wednesday, Kennedy Jr. outlined the details of a one-page guidance and said that the action is part of the Trump administration's relentless efforts to keep biological males from participating in women's sports. Kennedy, in his brief speech, said that the guidance also aims to halt gender-affirming care for young people and fulfill President Trump's pledge to restore moral sanity in the country. In the one-page document titled Protecting Women and Children, a biological male is defined as a person of the sex characterized by its ability to produce semen, and the female as a person who is endowed with the capability to produce eggs. The Department of Health and Human Services released a video of Riley Gaines, the conservative activist and former University of Kentucky All-American swimmer, explaining her ordeal of receiving hate messages from gender activists when she criticized the NCAA's decision to allow the biologically male swimmer Leah Thomas to participate in female swimming events. After a hectic and eventful Senate confirmation hearing, Robert Kennedy Jr. was sworn in last Thursday as the Secretary of the Health Department. Kennedy Jr.'s announcement was in response to an executive order Mr. Trump issued on January 20th that gave the Health Department 30 days to issue clear guidance to the public on how to construe sex-based definitions.
Hamas has reached a new level of ruthlessness by releasing the body of an unknown woman instead of the body of the 32-year-old Shiri Bibas. In a statement, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said that Hamas will pay a price for its blatant disregard for the slain hostage's body.
Hamas's barbarism knows no bounds, as Israeli forensic scientists confirmed that one of the 4 remains returned to Israel did not belong to Shiri Bibas, the mother of slain young boys. The shocking revelation came after forensic specialists at the Abu Kabir Forensic Institute informed officers of the Israeli Defense Forces that they were unable to identify the body and were certain it was not Shiri's. On Thursday, Hamas released the bodies of 4 individuals said to be 86-year-old Oded Lifshitz, 4-year-old Ariel, his 9-month-old sibling Kefir, and his 36-year-old mother Shiri. In a rather bizarre and odd body handling ceremony, the militants showcased the 4 caskets on a stage surrounded by banners, including a large one depicting Netanyahu as a vampire, before handing them to Red Cross representatives who were present with their vehicles on the Palestinian side of the border. The bodies were then taken to the Abu Kabir Forensic Institute, where forensic experts, including the dean, carried out a formal identification process using DNA. After confirming the identity of the fragile, partly decomposed body of the senior, 86-year-old Oded Lifshitz, the authorities handed the body to his family. The scientists were then able to establish the identities of 2 infant bodies, 4-year-old Ariel and 9-month-old sibling Kafir. The experts also determined the cause of death was asphyxiation, believing the boys were strangled. These findings debunk Hamas's claim that the boys perished during an Israeli strike in Gaza. However, when the experts began to analyze the only female remains, they were shocked to find that the features of the remains didn't match the description of Shiri's body. Forensic experts then conducted numerous examinations on the body, comparing it to her DNA and that of other female hostages, but officials said there were no matches and the identity of the remains was still unclear. In a statement released by Benjamin Netanyahu just after the revelation, he criticized the handover of the wrong remains as a cruel and malicious violation of the ceasefire agreement and personally promised the Bibas family that Hamas would pay a price for their blatant disregard shown to the remains of their loved ones.
Norwich Cathedral in England has received a £57,000 grant to address its repair issues, the second largest after Westminster Cathedral. It was placed on Historic England's Heritage at Risk register last year due to an increasing leaks in its roofs and drainage system.
England's second largest Catholic cathedral, the Roman Catholic Cathedral of St. John the Baptist in Norwich, is in need of urgent repairs. The cathedral was placed on Historic England's Heritage at Risk register last year due to increasing leaks in its roofs and drainage system. A £57,000 grant has been awarded to address these issues. The Victorian Gothic-style landmark is the second largest Catholic cathedral in England after the Westminster Cathedral. It was opened to public in 1910. However, the impact of climate change with rising rainfall overwhelming its Victorian gutters have severely affected the cathedral. Cathedral manager Charlie Purvis called the funding an important first step in preserving the building, allowing the team to better understand the issues the building is facing and plan for future work. Tony Calladine, Historic England's Eastern Regional Director, said the grant would help identify and address urgent repairs needed to protect this magnificent building. He further emphasized the cathedral's significance, calling it not just an architectural treasure but a vital part of Norwich's cultural and social fabric.
The Ursuline Sisters of Cleveland are on a path of healing and forgiveness after receiving a letter from Daniel Pitcher. Pitcher is currently serving a life sentence in an Ohio prison for the rape and murder of Sister Joanne Mary Marsha 30 years ago. As they reflect on the past, they relive the trauma but choose to embrace forgiveness.
The memories still haunt Cleveland Ursuline, Sister Laura Breger, when she opened the letter from Daniel Pitcher. Pitcher is currently serving a life sentence in an Ohio prison for rape and murder of Sister Joanne Mary Marsha 30 years ago. Sister Marsha, 59 at the time of her death, was well known for her gentleness and love for nature. An avid bird watcher, she loved walking in the woods on the campus the mother house shares with the Ursuline College. Pitcher wrote to the sisters asking for forgiveness. The letter shook the few sisters who knew about it. Reliving the entire experience was difficult, said Sister Joanne Gross, an attorney who helped the congregation navigate the legal process after Pitcher's arrest. The letter not only reopened the wounds of Sister Marsha's death, but also forced the sisters to relive the trauma of Sister Dorothy Kazel, who was kidnapped, raped, and murdered by government soldiers in El Salvador. Reflecting on the events from 3 decades ago, Sister Maureen McCarthy shared how the Ursuline sisters' stance on forgiveness and death penalty began almost by accident. After Sister Marsha's tragic death, Sister McCarthy, unaware of the weight her words would carry, told reporters she didn't believe in death penalty. Although the position had never been discussed, the congregation made an official stance opposing death penalty. As the legal battle progressed, the Ursulines rallied support from other Ursuline communities, flooding the prosecutor's office with calls, faxes, and prayers. The jury convicted Daniel Pitcher but left the death penalty penalty box unchecked, resulting in a life sentence instead. The judge later credited the sister's prayers for influencing the outcome. Pitcher is now serving 50 years to life. While he is alive and was able to ask for forgiveness, the sisters found healing through forgiveness. At 21, Pitcher was deeply troubled and had intellectual disabilities at the time of the murder. In response to his letter, the sisters wrote, "We accept your apology. We ask you to live out your desire for forgiveness by being a person of goodness, peace, and kindness." However, forgiving Pitcher is just the first step in the healing process. Because they are Catholic sisters, they don't want the healing to end with them. All the sisters emphasized that this is not just about forgiving the man who murdered one of them. It is about the renewed commitment to ending the death penalty.
That's all for today. Until we meet again, God bless and thank you.